A side benefit of the titanium heat reflectors is that this is the only sleeping bag I know of that can double as a backcountry disco ball. Hello and welcome to Ben's Neat and Novel Backcountry Gear and Gadgets, the show where I ramble on about some of the newest or most useful gear to emerge out of the wilderness that is the backcountry equipment market. On today's episode, I'll be talking about a recent ultralight summer sleeping bag from RAB, the Mythic Ultra 180. This bag retails for about 620 Canadian dollars. Ultralight sleeping bags are quite a competitive market, with manufacturers coming up with increasingly innovative ways to shave off more grams while preserving functionality. The Mythic Ultra 180 has a quoted mass of 400 grams and a RAB sleep limit temperature of 0 degrees Celsius or 32 Fahrenheit. The usual disclaimer at this point: I've purchased this sleeping bag with my own money and I am not affiliated with RAB. First off, if you purchase the bag from RAB directly, it comes in this nice, very recyclable bag, which contains a not compression sack, storage sack when you're actually using the bag in the field, and a long-term storage bag. The sleeping bag itself, unfurled here in all its glory. Black is the only color you get on the outside, so it won't really stand out that much, but it makes up for on its rather drab exterior. It more than makes up for in shiny inside. I guess the main question with the Mythic Ultra 180 is how effective is that metallic reflective coating? And it's hard to be analytical about how much the coating helps retain heat, but it does seem to have some benefit. Understanding how this works in a sleeping bag requires a quick review of the 3 different ways you lose heat. First off, there is conduction. That is, any surface that you are directly touching, the most important being the ground. A good insulating sleeping pad is one of the best ways to avoid losing heat to the cold ground. Secondly, there is convection, heat moving around the interior of the sleeping bag through air. Leaving a sleeping bag partly open or not cinched at the top will lead to heat escaping to the colder air in the outside environment. Lastly, there is radiation. Whenever there is a temperature difference between 2 objects, in this case a person inside the sleeping bag, and the wall of your tent, there will be a net transfer of heat by IR radiation. Traditionally, the best way to reduce radiation losses was just to make the material thicker. The Mythic Ultra tries to solve this problem instead by bouncing heat back towards you. Sounds great in theory, but does it actually work? Thin metal coatings are great at reflecting IR radiation, with several papers describing that similar materials can reflect 70 to 95% of incoming IR radiation. One of the first things you notice when unpacking the Mythic Ultra 180 is how light it really is. It, if anything, feels more like a down jacket rather than a sleeping bag. The outer fabric is 7D ripstop, so it would definitely lose a game of rock sleeping bag scissors. The first point of contention I have with this sleeping bag is the zipper. You can see right here, it's not that much of it. It extends maybe a foot in length in total, which for an ultralight sleeping bag, I understand you're trying to save weight wherever possible, but this length of zipper makes it marginally easier to get into the sleeping bag when it's opened up, but it doesn't really give you many options to vent heat. Say if it's pretty warm at the start of the evening, you don't really want to be fully zipped up in here to sweat. I found myself having to just more use the sleeping bag as a blanket quite often in those situations. Wake up kind of cold later when the temperature did drop down and then slither into the sleeping bag. So not a huge problem, but it seems silly to have a zipper just this long. If you're going to have them this long, why not just get rid of it altogether and save you an extra gram or 2. Measure the mass of this bag. Gonna pack it into the stuff sack it comes into. Pretty easy process to get it into the bag. Take a little bit of squishing. Bear in mind, this is not a compression sack here. So if you want to, you can get the bag to a much smaller size. For purposes here, should do just fine. The bag here gives a value of 0.41 kilograms, 410 grams. Yeah, not that heavy at all, really. For those trying to compress the sleeping bag as much as possible, here's a 5-liter compression sack from Outdoor Research and a can of beer for scale. We'll see how packable this thing can get. Okay, bag pre-compression. Okay, so that's as small as my compression sack will go. You can see the Mythic Ultra 180 is pretty packable. It will neither add a lot of weight to your pack or take up a lot of space. Now with that, we'll take this bag out into the field and see how it does. Especially on clear fall evenings, the 0-degree rating of the Mythic Ultra 180 felt a bit chilly. I spent about 30 days last summer sleeping in the RAB Mythic Ultra 180. Noticed some good things about it, some bad things, but overall it's a pretty awesome bag. In terms of positives, it's very light, extremely packable. You can bring it in conceivably any setting you want. Doesn't take up a lot of room in the pack, so there's no reason to leave it behind. Even for situations where you might not be spending a night out, but try to make an unplanned bivvy a little more comfortable, it won't take up a lot of weight in your pack, and it's a worthwhile addition. In terms of negatives of this bag, the zipper you can see here is basically worthless. It only goes about a foot in total. I feel if you're really going for ultralight as this bag is, you might as well just do away with the zipper altogether, because this doesn't really do much for you. In terms of sizing of the bag, I find it fits me quite well. Not that big of a person, but there's still enough room to put a few more layers in here. In terms of the waterproofness, it sheds water fairly well. As you can kind of see, it's actually snowing right here, right now, which I'm not too worried about this bag. Take it inside and it'll be okay. In terms of durability of this bag, I would not bring it near rocks or any sort of sharp objects, but if you keep good care of it, it's held up quite well over the summer season. And I'd imagine it would keep doing that for many seasons to come. Probably the main downside of this sleeping bag is its cost. It is quite expensive compared to similar bags in the range that are a little bit heavier. That being said, if you can afford a few extra $100, it's worthwhile for its compressibility and general how light it is in your pack. You'll barely notice it's there. In terms of other usages for this bag, during the summer season, I've taken it backpacking, overnight scrambling trips, a couple shorter climbing type trips, and it does well in all those situations. Another niche use I'm using right now is, say if you're doing a winter hut trip where you don't really need a warm sleeping bag because you have a nice wood stove, but you want something just to get rid of the chill at night. Even if you're just using a day pack with an avalanche bag, you can fit this in here quite comfortably, so it opens up a lot more options for you. In terms of overall who this bag is probably best used for, I'd say anyone doing fast and light types of trips where space in your backpack is at a premium as well as weight. That being said, if you could afford this bag, I would recommend it. There's very few downsides. Just do keep in mind its 0-degree rating is a little bit on the chilly end, I find, compared to other 0-degree sleeping bags. So maybe plan on having an extra layer if you are kind of near that threshold. In terms of the thermal ionic lining system, the kind of shiny inside here, does it actually reflect as much IR radiation as RAB claims? I really couldn't tell a big difference between this bag as well as my Mountain Hardwear Mountain Speed 32, which has a very similar fill weight and is also rated to 0 degrees. So I believe it helps some, but it's, at least in my experience, not really a game-changing amount. So beneficial, but not the be-all and end-all. That being said, if these sort of technologies could further improve, maybe future sleeping bags will be even better, even warmer, and even lighter. So we have that to look forward to. In any case, that's it for now. Time to head back inside the cabin and get dinner started.